Broadcasting from Phoenix, Arizona. You're now listening to the hottest podcast, The Get Down, with your host, JD.
What's going on, everybody? This is your boy, JD, and this is The Get Down podcast. It's been a few weeks since we've been on the air, but it's nice to be back. Got a new special co-host. Her name is Hannah. What's going on, Hannah? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. She looks a little nervous out here. She brought a good friend of hers. His name is Robin, comedian, a local Phoenix comedian. He's got a show coming up around mid-March 11th. Venue unknown as of right now, but we'll give you more info as we know, and Robin will as well. Robin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
So Robin, how long have you been doing comedy?
Oh man, on and off, I'd say. Damn, it's been a while. It's been probably 3-4 years now, maybe longer, on and off, that I've just been like jumping into whatever comedy club, or more often than not, just jumping into speed rounds and testing out new material. But it's been a hot minute. Yeah, it's been some time.
So where do you get your material from? Like,
a lot of it, I think. Comedy is most interesting when it's as real as possible. I think that's the cool thing about it is that it's life stuff. I talk about my family, I talk about my parents, and the more I think it reflects real life, the funnier people find it to be. And it's weird, but it's true. It's just always been, if I talk about my upbringing and my family, or just being, a first generation American here, and some of that stuff, people find that the funniest. And you see it, I think, in mainstream comedy too, like comedians like Aziz or Russell Peters. They throw an accent out there and people die, They lose it over that kind of stuff. And so in that sense, it's easy, but I try to challenge myself a little bit. I'm more of like a storyteller comedian. I like to bring specific events into it. I've talked about work, I've talked about growing up more than anything else. I used to live in LA. I grew up in LA and then moved to Arizona. Those are two majorly different dynamics.
That's night and day.
Yeah, and I think people just love to hear what's real, and it cracks them up.
Who influences you?
Oh man,
Do you like Kevin Hart and stuff? And
so
likes Justin Timberlake.
Oh yeah, Justin Timberlake is more of a family member to me than anything else.
Never say never.
Yeah, right? That's Bieber.
Oh shit! I don't know. Got my white boys mixed up. My bad.
Actually, what's funny is I was named Robin after Robin Williams.
Oh really?
He was my dad.
Not after Batman and Robin.
Not after Batman and Robin. That was after.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, he was my dad's favorite comedian.
Oh, wow.
And he just thought it was funny, and he liked the name, and he did it, probably not thinking how much of an impact it would have on my life, because it ended up just being that way. And I think I was just a goofball from the moment I was a kid onwards. And I remember I was a kid, I used to do a Michael Jackson impression. I don't do a Michael Jackson impression anymore. I mean, it wasn't a voice. I did like the crotch grab, and I did the spin move.
Oh, I got that down still.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I feel like every black kid got that down. We all practice it in the mirror.
My knees are too weak for it now. But,
your old ass joints.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that stick. Like you end up being known as the funny guy, and you meet people like Hannah that are like, Robin's the funniest guy I know. And you milk it because it's so much fun. I think it's fun to be that personality and be the guy to make everybody in the room laugh, or just for a little bit of time. There's so much of a deeper psychological aspect to it, to be up on that stage and come up with something that's just happened to me and tailor it for this big audience, and be able to have them think, this guy's just talking to me and he's like telling me a story, and then they just laugh their asses off. Like that's awesome. I think that's cool. There was a time that, and I think I told you this story before too, but there was a guy, and I did this joke about my dad, and growing up, Thanksgiving and Christmas weren't holidays that were like traditionally not something that we grew up doing. And so I would bring it to my dad, and I'd be like, hey Dad, like everyone in school is talking about this whole Thanksgiving deal. what's up with that? Like, they're getting turkey, they're getting presents, they got the whole nine, like, they've got all this food. And, like, I want to do that too. And I did this voice, which, like, was loosely based on my dad. He's not as aggressive, but on stage, I made this character out of him. And I would say that, like, my dad would do this thing where he'd just be like, hey, shh, and hush me. And the audience loses it, you know, and they love that. And I remember a couple months later, I was just, like, out in Old Town Scottsdale, and this guy came to me. He's like, hey, are you Robin? Like, do you perform at the Tempe Improv?
Oh
And I was like, hell yeah, you know, like, I made it, you know. And this guy was like, you did this joke probably 6 months ago about your dad and, like, how he hushes you or whatever. And he's like, I always do that to my girlfriend. That's like a joke. And I was like, first of all, like, don't hush your girlfriend. But
Probably not the smartest thing.
yeah, but the whole idea of the fact that, like, that came from my mind, that came from my life, and I just, you know, wrote it, tweaked it, delivered it, and somebody took that and, like, applied it to their life, blew my mind completely.
So who is like, you know, everybody? So your dad named you after Robin. You know, rest in peace, Robin Williams. Did you like his comedy? Did you find it funny?
I did. I think I found it funny that, you know, he did some serious stuff too, and I think that's the interesting thing about comedians. Like, there's actually, you know, there's studies that are out there that characteristics of a true comedian that does that as their passion, as their lifestyle, are more often than not, like, manic depressive and, like, just very black and white and double layered. And I always found that really interesting because you see comedians like Jim Carrey or Robin Williams that can totally transform, and they become these actors and turn into, like, sometimes, like, some really creepy, bizarre, multi-layered roles, right? Like, and they're crazy. Like, Robin Williams did this movie called 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It was so twisted, and then, like, that kind of stuff blew my mind. But in reality, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, and that was it for me. All I knew was that being a comedian was, like, the best vehicle to get into acting.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I loved Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Like, who doesn't like Jean-Claude?
Yeah, you know, and
American Kickboxer.
Oh yeah, those guys, like, those action movies, those were my heroes. And I was like, that's.
So you never really watched, like, Richard Pryor. Eddie
Oh,
Murphy.
Absolutely. I mean, I still, like, Chappelle is top of the game. Richard Pryor, Chris Rock.
Did you hear that what's his name, Fajon Love or something?
Yeah.
When he said that Dave Chappelle's whack and he never made niggas laugh.
Oh my God, Chappelle started a whole new revolution of a different level of comedy. Anyone that's not willing to admit that is out of their damn mind. Like,
because Chappelle's hilarious.
Chappelle is the best thing about Chappelle is that he if you see even some of his most recent work, he's just talking. He's up on stage, he's smoking a cigarette, and he's just, like, having a good time. You know, he's not.
But he's keeping it real.
Yeah, and he does some. What's cool is, at this point, he doesn't have to care, right? Like, he's Chappelle, he's already Chappelle. He's not coming down from that platform. Yeah, and so
unless he runs to Africa.
Yeah,
yeah. 50 million.
He finally admitted it too.
Right.
But even in his most recent stand-up, he talks about some of his experiences from the Chappelle Show, and, like, compares it to a book called Pimp, right? And he refers to this book called Pimp and talks and draws the parallels from his life and his experience in show business versus the experiences of, like, this pimp or whatever they're doing in their life. But it's crazy is that as a comedian, that's a whole other, like, you can't go to Tempe Improv on, like, a new faces night where it's a bunch of new comedians and be like, guys, let me talk to you about this book I read, you know? Like, you've got to be Chappelle to pull that kind of stuff off.
Because, I mean, because the new comedies, these comedy shows that you go to, you have to come out funny, hard, right away, or else the audience might not be ready yet.
And you're absolutely right. And the thing is, comedy can be easy to an extent. Like I was saying, like, there's this deeper psychological aspect to it. It breaks one of two ways. Either you're the comedian that you step out there and you make audiences so uncomfortable that they laugh, or you're a comedian that you truly want to, like, build a connection. And you'll see it because you see, I mean, 50% of the comedians you see on Netflix or whatever just, like, have extremely vulgar jokes, right? And it's crazy because comedy is one of the only platforms where you can say whatever you want. Okay. So
do you think comedy has no limits?
Absolutely. I mean,
so So absolutely limits or no limits?
No limits. No limits. And you think about it because, like, these guys touch on politics. These
Yeah.
guys touch on our current presidents. These guys will talk about little kids or things in the news or what have you.
What do you think about that whole Kevin Hart and Michael Blackson thing?
Sometimes you can. I think that has more to do with your level of celebrity, right? Like when you're at a certain point of celebrity, there's going to be a magnifying glass on your every move. And
You think Michael Blackson was wrong though for going at him?
I don't know. I think a lot of that is just like publicity more than anything else. You know, like
Okay.
they know what they're doing behind the scenes. And I think it's always like really well timed, right? Like they always do it surrounding like right before a special is about to be released. So I think at some point when it reaches that peak of start, and Kevin Hart when he started versus Kevin Hart what he's doing today are two different animals.
Yeah, Kevin Hart when he started was a lot funnier.
Funnier, yeah.
Than Kevin Hart today. Kevin Hart today is funny, but it's not like I'm gonna go race to the movie theater.
Yeah.
Or anything. I really don't see why they're putting his movies in theaters anyways for comedy specials.
He's got a following, you know. Like I think if before
He has
like
a name.
yeah,
People will drop money to
you
go
see
see
some of
him.
the stuff he did on like Def Comedy Jam.
Oh, yeah, that was
and it's
hilarious.
like holy cow, yeah, like he was on point.
Yeah, but he was now turned into a family guy,
Yeah.
family comedian.
He's
But
an
when he
entertainer. He's a performer. Yep.
Yeah, before his stuff when he was talking about Shaq falling on the floor and LeBron pick his ass up. and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
That was hilarious. You're sitting there like, gosh, damn, this fool's funny.
Yeah.
But now it's just like Chris Tucker. Old Chris Tucker was funny. The new
Right.
Chris Tucker, he did a comedy special. And that was
It's-
like 20 minutes maybe funny out of the whole movie.
Yeah.
And you're sort of just like, damn, Chris, you lost it. Like,
I think that so that's like part of where I backed off is that realizing it's comedy and fame and the entertainment business and show business is like there's this toxic surrounding it as it's progressed through time, right? Like if you think about it now, there isn't really this sense of like a true celebrity, right? Like growing up, somebody that was a celebrity was like a whole different level. They knew that they were a public figure, somebody that was influential. Now you could be on Instagram and be famous, like
I mean, a lot of the women on Instagram are famous.
they're all
Yeah,
famous.
like
They're
no
famous.
reason.
And look at YouTube. Like, I mean, I know I see like some of my younger cousins. They'll be like, "Oh, you haven't heard of like so and so like makeup tutorials and video comedy blogs
Man.
and
Instagram's the plug.
prank videos." Yeah, and
Instagram and YouTube.
Instagram and YouTube's where it's at to a point where I kept jumping in and out of comedy because it would and I had scouts approach me and say, "Hey, we love what you're doing. Like let's do something bigger. Let's go to Cali. Let's move there. Let's do this and that." And like I have always been in tune with my family more than anything, and it was like, do I want to sacrifice this level of this? And like, really, what am I gaining out of it? Like, do I want that level of celebrity? Is it going to be something where I'm going to actually be able to connect with an audience and impact youth? Or is it going to be me putting on a show and being under that magnifying glass that people like Kevin Hart are under now, just watching my every move?
Do you use your comedy to touch on social issues?
I think indirectly, that's the prime goal. That's the coolest part about it, is to be able to deliver those thoughts and just like through conversation be able to talk to such a mass audience that they've gone out of their way to hear you speak, right? Like they left their homes, they collected everything, they wore their best outfit and paid to get into this club.
Had to pay the 2 drink.
They're like,
minimum.
yeah, like we are
Stand up
gonna.
live,
Yeah,
that 2 drink
seriously.
minimum.
Oh, the
like
2 drink minimum.
$10 each
You have
for
to be
watered
funny for
down,
me to show up there.
So the-
watered down alcohol.
Exactly. By the point that you get out there, the pressure's on, and they're like, make me laugh, Robin. Like I paid for this. But it's a huge opportunity. Like again, it's that unfiltered platform to really be able to deliver anything. So I could get up there and do an Indian accent for a couple minutes and make a bunch of people laugh, and a lot of comedians sell
do
out,
that.
frankly, and do that. And that's cool if they're chasing the celebrity, but I think there's this silent side of it that is that platform to be able to like connect with people, and there's very few avenues where you can actually be able to do that. And like the shows that have really hit hard, and it's been that way, that I've felt like I'm just talking to a group of 1,000 friends or what have you, people find me afterwards, they find me afterwards and they're like, that was awesome. Like whatever you said, here's a life event from my life that I can compare that to, and blah, blah, blah. And they will, the following comes organically.
Yeah.
And it's not because they want you in its traditional sense to be a clown with the big red nose just doing the Indian
Because they
accent.
generally find you funny.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's cool because it feels like they got a taste of what your personality is, and that's what they really dig.
Now, are you single?
I am currently single. Yep.
So does comedy get you a lot of ass?
Comedy is, you know what's interesting? It happens in bursts where when I'm not on the stage.
What's so funny?
No,
Hannah?
Hannah, this is real. We got.
It's true, because I mean, if I'm a
Hannah's
comedian, I'm funny. I'm gonna expect some ass.
Yeah. Is the potential there? Absolutely.
Okay.
You know? But it's,
Are you getting like old white women, old grannies, or are you getting some
It's-
young
Yeah,
ass?
what kind
across
of
the
women are chasing you?
I'll tell you this: that the Tempe Improv draws like a big sorority crowd.
Oh, so you get some young ass.
And I'll tell you one
Barely
story,
legal
and
ass.
it'll spell it exactly clear that I did a show one time, and I came out on the stage, and the host said, "Hey, how do you want me to introduce you?" And I was like, "Dude, you know what'd be fucking funny? Like, go up there and just say, hey, you've seen NBC's Parks and Rec. There's that guy Aziz Ansari."
Oh my god!
And I was like, dude, go up there and introduce me as Aziz Ansari. And he's like, you're out of your mind, you know? And so he went up there, and I'm thinking, nobody's going to believe that. Obviously, I'm going to walk out, and like they'll be like, this is some, you know, local
Bootleg.
dude, whatever, like some random guy. I went out there, I did my bit, I came off the stage. I kid you not, at least like 6 different girls run up to me in the lobby right by the bar of Tempe Improv. And they're like, they want to take pictures with me, like one smooching me on the cheek. So there's pictures of me floating around on Instagram somewhere where I'm probably tagged as Aziz. And so I don't know. So I don't know if it's the level of celebrity or if it's the
okay.
comedy.
You
but
know, people think I look like Jadakiss sometimes.
there you go. That's
So I mean,
that's
I get
okay.
that, or I get like a Ninja Turtle.
Run with
So
it. You know?
I'm
They're
just waiting
both
for someone to
famous.
tag my ass on a Ninja Turtle post. I'm gonna fuck them up.
There you go.
But that's cool, man. So comedy gets you a little ass. So are you looking to use this comedy to get into acting? Or is acting still something you want to do?
I think I would never rule anything out. That's a good opportunity, and I think it all stems back to what is the purpose. I think as I've aged, maybe make myself sound old as hell, but like as I've grown up, I think what's become like we live in a different world, and like that kind of stuff really stands out to me. That what I remember as a kid and like riding my bike through the streets of LA and all that kind of fun stuff, like that element doesn't exist anymore, and I think it bugs me more than I admit. But I would like to bring that back. Like I think the opportunity with comedy or show business or entertainment in general is to be able not to just connect with people, but connect with the youth who now have lost some element of like what real life used to be. Yeah, like you think about
Kids are too stuck on their tablets nowadays and
Oh,
TVs.
yeah.
They don't understand what life is and comedy anymore.
there was like a study that I saw, now I'm quoting studies, but like there was a study that was done that it said 80% of kids under the age of 12 have, and I think there was like a limited sample size, but 80% of these kids under the age of 12 had access to like a mobile device or something to get on the internet, which is just this like thing that has unlimited amounts of info, right?
Yeah.
Like
Which could be
anything.
great in a way.
Which could be great, yeah.
It's educational, and a lot of parents do use for education.
I think it was intended to be something great, but with great power comes great responsibility. That's me talking through my superhero name, but and I don't think that responsibility was necessarily handled well because of, man, I hate to do this. Me and Hannah have been talking about this Obama interview for a while.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Obama.
But he mentioned something specific because it really was like a really crucial time in like the history of the country, right? That like
This is what we should have on video.
yeah.
For that 30%, this is worth it.
That's who needs to see it. But I remember when Barack Obama was elected for his first term, I was stoked that I was like, this is going to be huge. I want to be there for it. I flew to D.C.
That's dope.
And I didn't know why it was necessarily so important. I was so young.
History.
Yeah, but it was like, this is something different. Like, I've got to be there for this. And I went, and it was insane. Like, the feeling, like, there's very few feelings you get that are the same as what that was.
Yeah, we got
know?
to see history witnessed.
Yeah. and may never see something at that level again. But the reason that it was so important was because for the first time, and I remember you'd see all these commercials with all these celebrities, right? Like P. Diddy was doing this whole thing, had the big T-shirts that said "Get out and vote" and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And
P. Diddy always doing something like that.
Yeah, I think the no bitch assness was part of that campaign too.
That shit was dope, though.
Yeah, just get out there and vote. But it was so cool because it was like all these celebrities combined for this like really cool purpose, and it worked. And like suddenly youth were like, yeah, we made this happen. Like we got him in the White House. Like it was a win across the country. But then, he spoke about where that turned, like, because clearly it's taken a turn, and by popular opinion, it's taken a turn down south, and it's because, in my opinion, a lot of that has to do with what media has become and what social media has become, that the people that have formed that opinion about a specific thing are getting their news from Facebook or getting their news from social media sites like that.
Fake news.
And kids, kids are not, a 15-year-old kid that just wants to be in the know so that he can hold conversation with his friends is going to check what's quick, right? Like, let me just scroll through my Facebook news feed.
That's why they make it so quick. You can just read the title. And
that's all you need. Yeah. Suddenly
summary.
you know everything.
Yeah. I mean, we all do it still probably.
Hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I think we're at a different level where we have a heightened sense of awareness, right? We know that we got to do a little bit of fact checking before you believe anything these days. But what, little kid under 12, is going to say, let me make sure, let me look at like a reputable news source and make sure that that's true. Or
let me make sure this is like Yahoo or not TMZ.
They're like, okay, cool, I got my news, like let me go play with my fidget spinner now, They're not going to dig any deeper than that.
It's crazy because when Obama got elected, I got chills, and I got chills when you brought it up because it was history witness and seeing everybody chanting, "Yes, we can."
Yeah.
Like that was just like, at first you're like, "Nigga, we made it," like we made it to the White House, we put a nigga up in there. But then after that, you're just sitting back and you're like, this is deeper than anything else.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is deeper. This is like, for years, for centuries. You'll be able to sit there and say, I got to witness the first black president.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in some level of that, like, obviously, we're here, we're talking today, and we can all be on the same plane about it because it invoked some change, right?
Yeah.
It invoked a hell of a lot of change, and there's still people that are carrying that torch and trying. But Hannah, again, that interview, if you don't watch it, we're going to fight. But
I know.
This interview that Obama did with David Letterman on Netflix,
on the new one,
he touches base. He's talking about his life after the presidency, and it's a bittersweet thing because it wasn't about, like, not once do you hear in this interview him mentioning the flaws of foreign policy or our current economical state. Like, that doesn't matter as much as he knows that he inspired some kind of change, and he makes a lot of references to the civil rights movement, back in the day, and the parallels between it, because at that point in time, what it took was, it was the norm to be discriminatory. It was more commonplace to be discriminatory than it was anything else. And so for somebody to stand out against it was like, you sure you want to do this? And people like, like John Lewis is who they talk about in the interview. And people like that who were young, it's crazy to think about that, we're 21, 22 years old. Like, when I was 21, 22 years old, I was trying to figure out which bar in Old Town was like the best. Like, should I go to Bottled Blonde again? Or like, like that was my focus. Whereas this guy was thinking about, like, people like me need to experience equality.
Yeah.
The concept of equality probably didn't trigger in my mind till last week, and these guys had it down. It's like there was this heightened sense of awareness, and I think, and call me crazy, but I think because of the lack of that social media, if you wanted to know something, you had to go out of your way. You had to be really, you had to be interested in something to figure it out.
Read the newspaper.
Yep.
You used to be able to have to check show times on the newspaper.
Yeah, I joke with
Siri.
I joke with my parents because I tell them, like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, you took us to Disneyland. How did you do that with your broken accent? Without Google. And I think about it that, like, my dad probably stepped into a gas station and was like, which way do I go to, how do I get, and he figured it out. Like, they take this freeway to this freeway. And it's crazy to think about that like that element doesn't, because it's so convenient. In our pockets, we always have a phone, a messaging app. We get like the whole nine.
I remember back in the day when I was younger, I was probably 21, and I was dating a girl up in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And I didn't, smartphones weren't around then.
No. Yeah.
Shoot, I mean, there were cell phones. I know I probably had a flip phone, but I had a MapQuest that printed out and then pay attention. And actually, you have that, on the car where it goes A and B in miles.
Yep.
I used to have to use that
to figure out how far you're gonna go.
Yeah, 225 miles. Okay, this exit, and then you're pulling over. Man, a normal 6-hour car ride turned into like an 8-hour car.
It's
because you have to. And
then
I got
lost.
lost.
But that's part of the experience, right? Like, I know that it's interesting. Like when it comes back to comedy again, like that real shit is what people tend to forget now. And Louis C.K. did this interview with.
That sucks about him too.
It sucks about him because he was such a damn good comedian.
He's funny guy.
That one stunk.
Should have stopped jerking off in front of you.
Yeah, like man, just hold it.
Just
hold
Wait
it till you get
home.
Yeah, get to your hotel.
Like get in the car. Just
the car where it's still in public.
You look broke, but you got money. Like you don't need to resort to this.
Yeah. Poor dude, but he could fucking be smarter,
like, but he did, he was smart. That's what I really admired about him. He was smart in how he would talk about things, and he mentioned at some point that he was driving in his car, and he at some point just had this like overwhelming feeling of sadness, and just felt sad, and he was just like, this is weird. I don't know why I feel sad, but I just feel sad.
Yeah.
And his first instinct was, let me pull out my phone and like text somebody. Let me check what's up on Facebook. Let me see what's going on Instagram. And then he realized like, no, like sadness is like a very natural feeling, right? Like we should just absorb that, suck it up, feel it, cry it out, because that's what's normal. That's what we did before. That's what was normal human emotion, to just feel it. And then he mentions it, that he was like, and I just put my phone down and I just like, a flood of tears came down and I started crying, got really emotional. But after that, it was like the most refreshing feeling.
Do you think that especially for men, that sometimes we need to do that? Sometimes just break down?
Hell yeah. Yeah. I think big time. I think we've lost tune with that. Like I think when we're staying with this whole idea of like the impact of social media on the world, like you think about relationships, right? Now it's bizarre to think about it, but like couples will relate to if I went to a couple and I said, have you ever gotten into a fight over a Facebook like? I bet they'd be like, yeah, like
all the time.
Buddy over here likes to, click on some of these bikini pics late at night.
Dolly Castro.
Yeah, like, okay, who's she? What are you liking about it? Yeah. And it's bizarre.
Her fitness post.
It's one click that will ruin your relationship.
I think, yeah. Social media has definitely fucked up a lot of people's relationships.
Hell yeah.
And I think people need to realize it's just social media. Like for me, if I'm being in a relationship, I am in a relationship. It's, I don't care if she's on Instagram and she's liking the buff guys or whatever. I don't care.
It doesn't mean anything. Right?
It doesn't mean shit.
Right?
It's just a like. I mean, because you don't want to see my likes.
Yeah. But you can hide those, right?
But that doesn't bother me. It's like, if you take it a step further, obviously, but a like and share, who cares? That girl doesn't even know who you are.
Yeah.
She got 50,000 likes. You worried about that one like that your man did or she did? Who cares?
Yeah.
You're a small,
It's a small speck, but I think it's like there's layers to it now, right?
But it's also,
so much complexity.
It's also,
to it now.
Yeah, you're right about the layers, because women are looking at them like, hey, do I look good enough? How come he doesn't look at me that way? So it's all mind control.
And on one hand, like there's the element of likes or whatever. On the other hand, it's so convenient now. Like if I had a girlfriend today, and I wanted to keep like Tinder on my phone, if I wanted to keep some of the crazy garbage on my phone, and like if I wanted to have 2-3 side relationships where like technically if you're like texting somebody back and forth can be conceived as a relationship now, right?
Yeah.
Calling somebody or Snapchatting somebody back and forth, like to some degree that's a relationship. Like you're emotionally invested in somebody else. Anybody would call that cheating today. And like it's that convenience that is the temptation. That you jump on Snapchat, you see, all right, old Holly over here is looking a little tasty today. and it's quick.
Then you sending Holly a message like,
Holly
you looking
like a
nice.
snack today.
These companies are making money that way, making Holly look like a snack and making sure that there's no way to track it back, right? Like,
Because it does disappear.
everything disappears, and why is that? Because Snapchat's $1 billion company now, you know,
they're smart.
and there's a reason for it. They know to capitalize on that convenience and make sure that that's the case, and it's twisted. It's
And
super
probably their
twisted.
servers, they don't want to deal with their servers that much. Too.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, image, right? Like image is a big thing, and it's crazy to think about. Like you think back to when we were kids, and like if you wanted to look fly when you went to school.
Oh man,
Oh man, like if there was like a hot new piece.
My parents wouldn't buy it for me. That's
Hell
the thing.
no, they wouldn't buy it. You know, like,
no, I looked like I was Steve Urkel going to school.
Exactly.
You know, I had
You have
suspenders,
to go through your Urkel phase.
My dad used to make me pull my pants up to my belly button, and he used to say that's the proper way man walks around. That's like your nuts all up in your stomach.
it was a battle.
Like it was.
Oh my God.
Nowadays, if I
That's
see a kid
visual.
like that, I'm like, you better pull down those pants a little bit.
Yeah, what are you
like
doing?
sag
man?
a little
What's
bit.
wrong with you? That's
You
too
know,
tight.
don't have your ass out, but just sag a little bit. Like I be telling my girlfriend's kid, like son, I'm like,
Breathe
you
a little bit.
Yeah, like take off those little skinny jeans. And put some, you're gonna get a yeast infection or some shit. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
he's like yeast infection. I'm like, don't worry about it. Just put it on your pants.
Google it later.
Yeah.
He's
Google it when
Googling
it's
it
in.
already. He's got his phone up. And no, it's crazy because I think about, I remember when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade, the hottest thing on the street was this new thing, a battery operated little mini fan. And it had I don't know if you ever saw this, it was like a lanyard. You wore it around your neck, it had a little fan, you fan yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you need those during the summer.
I remember Michael in my class has this lanyard fan, and everyone's like, "Damn, Michael, where'd you get that?" And he got it from the ice cream truck right down the street. And ice cream trucks were a thing then, it mattered. And my parents would give me my ice cream allowance. Like every couple of days, I'd get like 50 cents, maybe 75 cents, $1. And I bamboozled the system. I was like, I'm not gonna have ice cream for a while. Like I had to go on an ice cream diet, and I had my little Bubblicious packet, and I would keep my 50 cents, 75 cents. 2.5, 3 weeks later, I finally had enough to save up for that $2.50 little fan, and finally got it. And then I was like, I was hot shit at school. Like I walked into school, I was like,
With your lanyard
my oh
fan.
my, this history class is getting a little toasty. Oh, let me just whip out my handy dandy little fan. Like
my God.
that was revolutionary technology at that time. Like I make it sound like I was in the 1900s or whatever.
Yeah, I'm about to say they don't
Old
got
as hell.
AC.
This was 1995, like so, and it's crazy to think about that level of effort doesn't exist anymore, right? Like we used to know that, like, hey, you get through school, you get through college, and you'll be that dude that's successful. You have like a babe of a wife, a big ass house, and like an awesome sports car. And that's why we kept grinding. We didn't know the easiness of it wasn't there. You had to read a damn book, and
You got to pick up the encyclopedia.
you got to pick up the encyclopedia and
You gotta
figure it out.
Figure out, where that word really is.
Yeah, find the way
Nowadays,
the
Google
world works.
saves our ass.
Google
Right.
saves you, and it felt great for a while, but then we
Still
saw
feels
the
good.
aftermath of it. Because on that image side, like I've seen kids, some of them in my family, even younger siblings and cousins or whatever, that really milk that image, that they know that I could be, if Bieber's looking great today, I could be everything that Bieber is, truly, right? Like, if Bieber's got a hot new outfit on, I could find the cheap version. And you see their outfits now, they look all bummy anyways,
They go to the alleys.
Style.
Yeah, you could be exactly your favorite celebrity, no problem online. You could be whoever the hell you want.
$30 downtown at the alleys.
Yeah. Nowadays, like
You
you,
get everything down there.
yeah, it's become a
Used to be
dangerous
able to-
world. You can't tell these girls even that are younger, like they're 13 looking like they're 20.
Yo,
It's
Y'all
a
be
scary
careful,
world. Yeah,
right?
you gotta be careful.
you gotta have them sign. Yeah,
You can't trust anything on the internet,
can't. I mean, it's one of those things where I've seen a lot of young women,
Yeah.
and this was now. I don't look anymore because I'm just like I just look at every woman like nah.
Yeah.
Because they're on this Me Too thing right now.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Not me. No, thank you.
So, I'd be looking at when I was younger. I was like, damn, I'm gonna go bomb. But I'm like, wait a second.
You
Wait.
can't. Yeah, yeah.
And then she'd be like, I'm 16. I'm like,
I'm sorry. young lady.
Yeah. Please go home.
Yeah. Do you need directions to the library?
Not going back to not going back to one thing, like, you know, you like comedy stars. Obviously, you probably watch a lot of comedy.
Yeah.
What about Lisa Lampanelli? Because you were talking about before, there's a comedy ones who want to engage with their audience and really make them feel home, and then there's one that wants them to feel uncomfortable and they laugh.
Yeah. And,
Lisa Lampanelli, what do you think of her?
Lisa Lampanelli, Amy Schumer, they're both like kind of in that same realm. That's part of the poison, you know, like you can do that. And it's interesting, you know, like people, it's a controversial area.
Do you think that because of the way she is, that's why she's not as big?
Oh man, that's
she's
a
not as
tough
big.
call.
She's not as big.
She's not as big as Schumer, yeah.
Well, yeah, but she's funnier, and Schumer to me is really not even funny.
Yeah, Josh is not a fan.
Not a
of
Schumer
I
fan.
love Amy Schumer.
I think Lisa Lampanelli was one of the first female comedians
she's
that really
really
wrote
funny.
the book.
Yeah,
Right, she
on how
paved
to-
the way.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch her stand up,
yeah.
she's talking about having sex with a guy in a wheelchair, and she called him Meals on Wheels.
I think it's hilarious to have that rare, because you don't. It's rare to come across, you know.
And then she's just so. I feel like she's just so like. She just pulled it out the air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you know she sees two guys sitting next to her, like, look at these two faggots right here.
Yeah.
And you're just like. And they're sitting there like, what? And then she's like, look at this, you know, Shaquisha. And she's like, no, my name's like Monica. You know, like,
Oh my God.
So, and that's like in Lisa Lampanelli, she is somebody that does like that true improv. She does a lot of crowd work. You know, she touches base with them.
is that how you are with your crowd? Do you ever sometimes?
It's a tough thing to do and bounce back from, because
You'll forget some of your where you're going.
yeah, I mean, like it can easily throw you off your game. And you got to understand, like being up on that stage, you can't see anything. You
Yeah, a
can't
lot of
even
times you
hear your crowd. Like you just have bright lights. You're blinded. You can maybe see like the 5 people right in front of you. You know?
What about, have you ever had any hecklers?
Oh hell yeah!
Have you ever
Oh,
gone at
hell
them
yeah.
or anything? Or
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
have?
Yeah. I mean, you have to, because it's like
What were they saying?
it'll be, and you know, and the unfortunate thing is that like sometimes you're gonna have that ignorance in the audience, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And the ignorance comes about, and they want to be the comedian then, like they want to throw you off of your, and the reasons behind it I struggle with, but it's happened before that people are like, whatever.
have you ever lost your cool?
Nah, you can't do it. You can't do it, you know, like.
But did you come close to it? Like,
I've come very damn close
So
to
what,
it. Like,
what
I've
did
come-
someone say for you to be like?
You see, the guy had something like, the guy jumped up and made some like terrorist joke, you know, like something about a previous comic. And again, like you could take those easy ways out, and the previous comic happened to be the host actually, and he went up and he made this joke about Bin Laden, you know, which like God, like even today saying that word out of my mouth feels like shit, they're coming, you know, like back up, like you can't even say it with confidence. And he made some joke about it, and he could, whatever, it was a black dude, and he just went on about this Bin Laden joke. And then when he introduced me, he said, speaking of Bin Laden, yada yada yada. And that was his joke, and I was just like, come on, man, like
you're making it hard for me.
Yeah, you're taking the easy way out. And so whoever in the audience said some shit like whatever, Bin Laden's nephew or whatever. And you gotta engage with him. You gotta address it, and you gotta cut him off. You gotta
What did you
let
say,
him
like,
know.
no, I'm Azari's nephew?
Yeah, actually, something along those lines. And when they get caught in the tracks like that, like I told that guy straight up that I was just like, hey, probably should sit down. Like this is my show, sit the fuck down. And you gotta catch them in their tracks, or they'll eat you alive. They'll eat you alive on stage. They want to see
You fail.
They want to see you fail.
They want to see your reaction.
Yeah, they want to see.
See, I always said if
damage.
I was going to be a comedian, which I've always thought about one day just kind of doing it.
Yeah, you got to do it with me, man.
Just for fun, you know?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I'd be pissing off that crowd.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I would tell stories of family, but I mean, I'll just keep it honest. Like,
Yeah.
I would probably just roast the hell out of that guy.
Yeah.
But I don't want to like get roast. I don't want to roast him so bad that he's jumping up on stage.
Yeah.
With what was that one guy who just jumped up on stage with like a pole or something and swinging it at the comedian?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Because he roasted him or something like that, or
It happens, man. It's weird. There was actually another comedian that hated the fact that there was such good response. I've been like lucky and blessed to have like awesome audiences that were like really connected, you know. He hated it because he would go up there. I mean, he had this joke that was like, I eat ass like I eat watermelon, like very just like basic level. I kid you not, like very basic level, like dumb shit, you know?
Yeah.
And like nobody enjoyed it. Like nobody
No.
thought it was as funny. And so like when he would see that I would do my set, people are roaring, other comedians would do their thing, people are roaring. He'd go up on stage and people were like, "That's the night, like let me head out of here." He got on the mic and he called people out in the audience and said like, "Where are you going?" You know? Comedy 101, that's a big no. You don't call out your audience as they're trying to go home. And he got into it with me, saying like, "Oh, you're like PG comedy is like bullshit," and da da da. And I was like, "Look, man, like this is just my outlet, you know. Like this is not. It's not even my career at this point. It's just something that I enjoy. I am doing. I love doing it because I get the bug now. I see shit happen in my life, and I'm like, man, this would be like, I would love to retell this story." But I don't want to retell this story in the way that it's the norm now to like write a Facebook status or whatever. Like, it's a gift, I think, and Mom always says it's a gift, to be able to connect with a big crowd of people and be able to touch base with them and have them dive into your mind for a second and see a picture that you've painted for them. And like, yeah, absolutely, that's huge. And I think that inspiration like absolutely came from my mom, because my mom's huge on like inspirational talks, like. She'll watch, like, she loves like the money talks from like Dave Ramsey, the whole nine. Like she watches.
I thought it was money talks from like Chris Tucker.
No. Yeah. But who's the other guy? Like Jim Ron and some of these guys. Like she loves that stuff. She'll send it to me all the time, but she tries to do it to inspire me, because she'll be like, "I want you to go and talk to people because clearly you've been able to do that through comedy, and like." People enjoy it, people like it, and now do it for a reason. Like, don't just do it to do it. Like, have some purpose behind it. If people are willing to lend you an ear, that's not something that's common, Like, not everyone can jump up there and be able to, like, construct this image and paint this picture for somebody, and it's an art form. And once it became that for me, comedy initially when I went up there was that. I went up there and I did my Indian accent, and I went up there and I told some story geared towards like, I've got to make these people laugh. And it wasn't about connecting with them. And I watch, my first show versus my most recent shows, and I'm like, damn, like the guy that was on stage on my first show, it wasn't even me. And then eventually it became something where I was like, I don't care if 1,000 people come to the show. I don't care if it's just 10 people that come to the show.
You just want to do it.
I just want to connect. I just want to like try this stuff out. That's why like I stopped at some point even like publicizing it or posting it online, because I was like, I just want to talk to people and like try this material out. Because like, why do we hang out with friends, right? Like, why do we socialize? It's for that same purpose, is to be able to talk about your feelings and yada, 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 whatever the whole deal is. And so being able to do that has been like the biggest win off of it.
Awesome. Well, Robin, do you have an Instagram you want to shout out?
I do. It's at the Robin Islam. The ROBINISLAM. It's me.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man. And stay tuned to his Instagram, the Get Down Instagram. Hannah was a little quiet tonight. This is crazy.
I'm nervous. It's my first.
She was nervous, but she was going off about Donald Trump and everything.
Yeah, Hannah, I think you gotta share some of your thoughts,
All right, check us out on YouTube. SoundCloud will be coming soon. And we're on iTunes. All right, have a good night.
Thanks, man.